And over the years, government has set up different committees, organizations, reforms that we have seen, all trying to address what are the real challenges. The presentation made by Tayo, Mr. Oyedele, also spoke to it directly, knowing that we have a real challenge in the country in terms of revenue. And some of us have had the opportunity to look and interrogate some of those data. And we have seen in the country, smaller ones with a lower population, with low imports or economy are doing very well than our own country. And when you look at the composition of the 36 states and the FCT, which is supposed to be the engine room for all the challenges that we could have, because it dwindles down when you look at the Constitution's provision. Living at the overall problems that we know, whether in terms of corruption, mismanagement, tax evasion, capacity building, some of the key aspects of it, because we are going to speak directly to the now operators, those who administer, the chairman of the State Internal Revenue Services, and also to the staff that are working with them. Mr. Oyedele made mention of tax morale, that 87 or 83% of Nigerians do not see tax evasion or non-payment of tax as criminal in nature. And if you don't, for example, believe or look at the Constitution, which provides that under 6 essential rights the citizens of this country is expected to abide by, you will discover that one of the essential aspects of it is to declare your income honestly to constituted authority and pay under Section 24 of the Constitution. Now, starting from ourselves, how many of us do we declare our income apart from what we deduct at source and pay? And if you look at yourself from that perspective, you will realize that it's difficult when the operators don't also comply with the constitutional provision for them to dig down on others to pay. The trust that you have in government is key. Now, when the challenges are looked at generally, you will always have the opportunity. And one of the key opportunities is this NFIU's existence. I work closely with the NFIU in my capacity of working in the FRS, and we have seen the kind of information or data that they've been able to send down for us to work with. And when one of the state internal revenue chairmen told me, was it last 2 years or so, particularly in Borno State, that they wrote and probably they were the first to request for information from the NFIU. We know there are challenges at the state level, particularly when the CEOs may not want to see the amount of data being driven down to them by the NFIU because they wouldn't want to see some of the transactions or activities that are happening. You are only concerned with how do you improve the revenue of the states. Data is as good as it is if you don't interrogate and make use of it. Without even the NFIU, let's for example take it. We know your neighborhood, the number of people who own what kind of houses at the state level, someone who uses the car, the type of schools the children go to, the amount of contribution or donations they are making. And I will make a reference to an issue that happened in Kenya. When the vice president made a public statement saying he owns some farmlands, chickens, the next letter he got from the Internal Revenue was, Mr. Vice President, we have listened to your own declaration of your ownership of A, B, and C. From our returns, we do not see it. I am sending Mr. A, B, and C to sit down with you and explain those things so that you can be captured in the tax net. Now, a situation where you have a political will, and I was also a part of the FRS management team in Kenya Revenue, and we asked, in their center, call center, you could see people with disabilities, blind, people with amputated hands. And the question I ask is, if you request for information or a taxpayer calls, how long does it take for them to respond? The head of the center has a dashboard watching at it. And she said quickly that if after the person who was answering that question is not able to explain to the satisfaction of the taxpayer, they would know something is fundamentally wrong. Now, I now ask her, how will you assess yourself or the? She said, including the CEO of their own revenue agency is assessed on the number of times or his ability to respond to it. So we need to have and look at it and put at the level. Every one of you that has been given opportunity to head revenue, regardless of where you have to make that vow in see that you need to turn around. Now, doing that, what are the opportunities that you could see always for you to work on? Now, when you have it, interrogate and make it. And he has presented that to the president. This position is for me to collect adequate revenue for you to execute. Politician wants to succeed, wants second term, and therefore you do it. Now, the tools available to you. Every one of us talked about course that I attended are trying to see you have very repository of information at your disposal that you can always tap on without even looking at outside to get the information. Take, for example, the Personal Income Tax Act or the FRS Establishment Act, which requires that a bank is supposed to disclose to you the kind of inflows that they receive if it's above certain threshold. The Finance Act made mention that if there's any bank account that operates within certain period of time without TIN, it's supposed to have been closed or put a lien on the account. How often at the State Internal Revenue Service do you take advantage of the provision of the tax law in demanding for those information and then or data and interrogate it? That you don't need to even write to NFIU to get it because the law has made it very available for you. But the NFIU has taken steps and make it very easy for you to have it at the fingertips. You don't need to write to the banks. You don't need to ask. Sometimes the banks, it will take a longer time to have it. Now, when they disclose to you, how do you use it? Do you compare it and contrast with the level of what is at your disposal? Every individual who files returns, he has the data with the NFIU. If you don't file returns, they have the data available to you and you can make use of it. In terms of technology or the partnership that Dr. Faisal mentioned, which there are three broad areas. The private sector is supposed to be your friend and you will have large amount of information from the banks through telecommunication companies. 1 minute. So you need to partner with them for them to see that you are doing it in their own interest and the interest of the country. Do you have a collaborative joint meetings along with it? How often do you call the NFIU or the private sector saying we are partners in this regard? Artificial intelligence, the blockchain technology, Internet of Things, all the things that you see around, even from your Facebook page, information that as a taxman you could use. The schools within which your jurisdiction you operate, how many people are bringing their children into a private schools? What is the school fees they pay? And what is the level of compliance of those parents who pay that kind of a school fees? It's enough for you to build it in order to have that, look, Mr. A, B, and C, the information you are providing for us is not adequate for us to see. So it is key for you to understand and identify the areas or private sectors that who will be a partner for you in order to make sure that we collect the adequate revenue in terms of disclosures, reporting, timely payments, and timely filing of returns. Mr. Moderator has mentioned that I should stop here. Thank you.
Can we please give him another round of applause? Thank you very much, sir. That was a very excellent intervention. Has covered also all the areas that were required of you in very good time. So thank you for that intervention. And I think you've actually addressed the issues that we have been facing today in this country. The issue of failure of compliance when it comes to collection of taxes. Um, but again, where we see challenges as opportunities. So we can be able to turn this around. It's not something that is beyond us. With countries like Kenya and South Africa collecting much more revenue than Nigeria, I think there is great scope for improvement. And definitely we will get there, but we have to ensure that there is proper compliance, there's enough coordination and collaboration, which is mentioned in the NFIU is available, that it can give you the right amount of data, the right type of data that you can utilize to have this analysis. Also, you talked about the tools that are available, especially the use of technology. This is, of course, also linked to the availability of data, because having data for data's sake is not enough. You have to utilize it using the right amount of technology and the right type of technology. Then also you talked about how the states can take advantage of the tax laws. There are already tax laws that are in existence that can be utilized. I think Mr. Oloyede made in his presentation did allude that the state revenue agencies were, I wouldn't call it lazy, but we're not doing enough. I think there's great room for improvement there. And the fact that now, more than ever, the economy has put us in a situation whereby this revenue coming from the states is very, very vital for the existence of the country, because we have challenges ranging from insecurity, from unemployment, from high cost of living. So these are issues that can be resolved using internal generated revenue. We talked about the use of blockchain and open source information. Open source intelligence is very, very vital. Through social media accounts, from the activities of people that are online, you can actually trace and see what they are doing. So thank you very much, sir, for that excellent intervention. And I will now call on the next panelist who has just joined us. We were expecting him anyway. From the EFCC, we have Mr. Friday Ebelo, who will talk about the role of the EFCC. We will discuss common issues such as tax evasion, on the reporting of income. We also have lacks of taxpayer awareness. This is a very huge challenge that we know we are facing in this country at the moment. Also explore administrative challenges, including outdated technology, which Mr. Mazu has talked about, limited resources, and interagency coordination issues, where sometimes the agencies, instead of collaborating, see themselves as rivals, which is counterproductive to what it is the objective of collecting revenue in the country. Then also to address alternative measures for prosecution and the recovery of tax revenues. So these are the main areas which this presentation or his intervention will cover, and we are ready to listen to him. Mr. Friday.
Good afternoon, the CEO. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and every members of the high table. I'm sorry for coming a bit late. I'm sorry for coming late. On my schedule, I was thinking that tomorrow was the program was for tomorrow, so I will just rush out from the office to join this forum. First of all, we want to thank the NFIU for being able to organize this symposium, bringing us together for effective how we can improve on our task nets. And I want to thank you for your initiative. I want to thank you that we are a partner in this. For our people, the state revenue agencies that are here and our colleagues that are here, we want to tell you that from the EFCC, we are a partner in progress. We didn't fall for the moon. We are your brothers and your sisters. And so we are here to help the same cause. If our citizens can develop or can pay their adequate taxes, the issues of saying that, oh, there's not enough money, we are going to borrow money from foreign donors and from foreign other people will be minimized greatly. And so we can bring in a lot of people into the tax net where we create fund for development. So in the EFCC, we frown at those that kind of evade tax because they are more or less economic crime. You understand? So if you are not carrying out your duty that you are duty bound to pay a certain amount of money and you're evading it, to us, we view it like economic sabotage because you are not helping the states, neither the federal government nor the local government. As a country, we must see and work together to see how we can collaborate together, enlighten our citizens on the importance of the taxes that they are paying. And they must be able to see the effect of those taxes on the table. Because areas where we are, the area of corruption. And how can we, is because if we are earning a lot of money, say for instance, we are earning 30 million and we see a work of 25 million, nobody will talk about corruption. It's the situation whereby you bring in 30 million and you can see the work of 5 million, issues will coming up. So we want to encourage every one of us here, especially state revenue across the country. This is a synergy. This is a synergy coming together. Because from the FIU, we'll be able to have actionable intelligence that you can use from your debt to expand your tax base. You don't need to put so much on the feed. From the FIU, you have a lot of information that will be available for you to make a lot of expansion into your tax next. And so by so doing, we'll have enough of income that will come into our states. And when our states are buoyant, even the center will be at peace. So this is a call for action for all of us to come together to see how we minimize wastages. We see in areas of revenue that we have been able to bring into the table so that we can meet we can open up the spaces. I can tell you that we have, because we are just us, we are agro-based kind of economy that is growing up. So if we can open up the rural area, a lot of taxes and a lot of things can come on board. We can expand those, we can expand the horizon from that angle, and so doing, we'll be able to come up with a attainable revenue at the end of the year to achieve and pass our project tax that was set for ourselves. And so we want to encourage you all to please see this as a forum of collaboration, synergy between the federal agencies and the state agencies. We are not lording over anybody here, no. This is us for you. We are one citizen, and we have just one country as a nation, as a people. And if we have one country as a people, we must see to it that whatever money that is coming in must be used for the betterment of the people. I held the last discussion when I was talking about the tools that are available for the revenue services to work with. I have not been able to explore on a lot of areas. For instance, it made mention of blockchains, artificial intelligence, these areas that are coming on board. And I see that from some adverts that are going on, some banks and some companies are using some AI tools already to make some kind of advert going on. So we can exploit the positive aspect of this to see how we boost our revenue base back home. And when we can do those things, then Nigeria will be in for a great time. Every one of us will be happy with us. So what we want to say, from the EFCC is that please, the revenues that you are bringing in, please tailor them in, let them be utilized effectively for us all. You know, if my state is well developed, your state is well developed, we'll reduce these issues of banditry, crime, and all sorts of things that are going on across board. So please, I want to encourage us to, and if, for instance, Delta State is doing something that is working for it, Ogun State is sitting by it, you work around, you collaborate. There's nobody that works in silos. The ability for us to work together, that's what makes us a strong and a better nation. I want to once more thank you for giving me the opportunity to just step in and chip in a few words. On behalf of my boss, I want to wish you all a good deliberation. Thank you
all. Thank you, Mr. Friday. Please, another round of applause because that was an excellent intervention. So you did briefly capture the essence of the discussion. You were able to identify the major challenges and, of course, how this can be turned into opportunities. You talked about Nigeria or states not needing to borrow money because the revenue we can generate internally, there's great potential for that, and that should also be done more effectively and efficiently. You talked about the EFCC taking tax crimes as very serious, And I know that the tax evasion and tax crimes are also financial crimes, which the EFCC works very closely with the FIRS and the NFIU to ensure that people who indulge in these activities are brought to justice. You talked about corruption as a major stumbling block to the development of the country. Of course, where there is corruption, there will be leakages in revenue collection. And these are some of the major challenges that we've been facing, which, of course, again, if you employ technology, you are able to monitor and track effectively and be able to plug those gaps so that you can generate more revenue and the country will be better off as a whole. And finally, you talked about the need for effective collaboration between the state revenue agencies, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the EFCC, and the NFIU. And this particular engagement is a testament to that fact that the time is now for this collaboration, and we will begin to see dividends from this collaboration. So thank you so much again for your contribution. So I'll go right next to the ICPC, who are ably represented here. We'll now hand over the mic to Mr. Michael Abu.
Okay, let me try myself. Director, CEO, NFIU, my fellow panelists, and our distinguished participants. Once again, good morning. Good morning. Can you have my slide up? The slide is just three pages. But after listening to the first presenter and others, there's no need for me to go through the slide. The fact is that there's nothing I want to say that is new to you participants. But let me just tell you something about corruption and anybody who participates in corruption. You know a dog, a very hairy dog. Compare Nigeria to a very hairy dog. Those who perpetrate corruption, compare them to the fleas, the lice that suck the blood of that hairy dog. When the fleas and lice are sucking the blood, how do they feel happy? They feel happy. They keep sucking, they grow fat. Corrupt people are doing the same. But what happened eventually to that dog when all his blood is dried up? It dies. The owner digs the ground, buries the dog and the... So what happened to the fleas and the dog? So corruption is an that grammar used to break my mouth. Corruption is threatening our corporate existence. And very unfortunately, some of us are involved. Unfortunately, I use the word some of us, including myself. Some of us are involved. If we do not stop, we'll kill both the country and ourselves. Is that message clear? Is the message clear? Okay, now let's look at the impact of corruption. I have to speak on three areas. Impact of corruption on revenue generation. Go to the second slide. Then I'll also talk about innovative approaches. Then strategies to strengthen subnational domestic mobilization. I will just use some few analogies or stories to cover this. The first one, under loss of revenue. Can you remember the P&ID case? How Nigeria would have become, let's use the word bankrupt, because imagine paying a judgment debt of 11 billion. From how much do we have? That's the effect of corruption. What about effects of corruption on our infrastructure? This thing is simple. You can read it at your own time. There was a case we investigated. Unfortunately, the defendant died sometime this year while we were prosecuting him. But that's not the matter. The issue is that that agency, that defendant, for every contract he awards, all the contractors pay 35% to Bureau de Change. Every contract, mark my word, 35% goes to Bureau de Change, and the Bureau de Change channels the money back. Now the question is, what will the contractor do with 65%? You agree with me, to be a shabby job. So corruption results in dearth of infrastructure. Even where the infrastructure is built, it collapses in the nearest future. How many of us know such companies as UAC, Leventis, Kingsway, PZ, Shellerams, and how many of us know those companies? Are they still in Nigeria? Why did they leave? Because of what? It's impossible for them to have a structure on which to operate. And they had to move to foreign countries. Now just think, if all these companies were here and they're employing working thousands of persons, just imagine the PIT. It's unimaginable. That's the effect of corruption. Now, there is one building in FCT called the World Trade Center. Do you know that building? When it was conceptualized, it was supposed to have 5 towers, 4 different towers and 1 in the middle. But you know that those who brought that project to Nigeria, they had to stop the project after 2 towers were built. Do you know why? They found out that the cost of those 2 towers is almost the cost they used to build 5 towers in other parts of the world. Yes. And what happened? Somebody told me this, one of the contractors that used to supply stones and sand. Now what they do then is that you are supposed to bring 20 tons of stones. They will take 10 tons. The store receiver will receive 20 tons. They'll be paid for 20 tons and they share the difference. Because of that, there was cost. The cost was excessive. And because of that, we could not get the 5 towers. All we could get is what? 2 towers. If you have ever traveled to Addis Ababa, we call Nigeria giant of Africa. If you have gone to Addis Ababa, just walk along one street. The number of skyscrapers you will count on one street alone is more than all the skyscrapers in Abuja. These are as a result of foreign direct investments. Who will come to your country when there is what? Corruption. So that's why we use that word exit, whatever challenge. I've not been able to overcome that word. So corruption is a real big problem. Can we go to the second? And the third one is that under corruption is that there is loss of confidence in governance. And when there is no trust in governance, why will the person, why will that who is suffering to live in pay a tax? All of these are the fallout of corruption. But the question is, what is the way out? Takes us to the next slide. I think the solution is 2 words: digitization, automation, or call it IT, AI. And the second one is love for your what? Countryman. Why did I use the word digitization? During the coronation of King George, the new king of England, I was in England, and a friend of mine was taking me from London to Milton Keynes. There was heavy traffic, so he said he's going to use the King's Tunnel, and that he has to pay £4 just to use the tunnel. So I was expecting that I'm going to meet a toll gates. So we drove. After some time, I knew I was in a tunnel. We drove in a tunnel for about 5 minutes. After some time, we came out. And I asked him, where is the toll gate? He said, before we get to our destination, they will send him an email that he has used the King's Tunnel and is to pay £4. That's digitization. There was nobody collecting toll. There was no police chasing anybody. There was fix on the road. Nothing. So digitization will help us. Aside from digitization, we need to, as soon as possible, I think NFIU should be able to drive this, as soon as possible, transmute into a cashless economy. Because if transactions goes through the financial system, as in countries, once I buy land for my friend, once I pay through the system, that's the tax authority. So whether I register or not, the system knows I've bought that land, and they come after me for the CGT. But if I pay in cash, will you know? So as soon as possible, we should transmit to a cashless economy. Why do I say so? There was a time I a camera. This was in 2010, so it's a long time ago. The camera I checked was worth $200. Okay, let me just write. It was worth $200. So I went to a shop. And I wanted. The old man said, "Accept cash. You must use a card." So I went to a Lebanese shop. That man said, "I'm ready to $150. I got a good bargain. I bought it. So what is the lesson we are learning? The man that said he cannot collect cash is because he wants a trail. But because the Lebanese is ready to sell for cash and he will not pay tax on it. Are you getting it? So once we are able to do everything, we'll be able to help ourselves. Now let's take the last part. What else can we do? I think that another example, last one, sorry, please. This thing happened in the United States. There's a county, the county executive, every month, he has a dashboard like this. We publish how much came to the county, road, and so on and so forth. Every month, that is what it does. Is there any IRS that can tell us how much they got last month and what they use it for? Are you as open as transparent? If you are not open and transparent, how will the people trust you and give you their money?
Thank you very much. This is another round of applause. So thank you very much, sir, for that excellent intervention. I think the point has been made, the message has been delivered. You give very wonderful analogies, especially the story of the hairy dog. We can liken Nigeria to that hairy dog and the fleas. So eventually, if we keep feeding on that hairy dog, we will all perish. And thankfully, there are no Lebanese in this room, I hope. But they are our partners anyway. So you talked about the impact of revenue generation on impact of corruption on revenue generation. And you gave a very, very practical example, the P&ID case, which we are all very familiar with. In fact, that case was a case that showed effective collaboration because I think the NFIU, the EFCC, a lot of all these agencies worked on that case. And eventually, that case, Nigeria was able to benefit from the outcome of the judgment. Issue of absence of infrastructure. This, of course, can lead to loss of foreign direct investment. You made mention of some of the very important multinational companies that have left Nigeria over the years. This clearly can be attributed to the problem of corruption when it leads to lack of investment in infrastructure. And obviously, the government will lose when these companies leave because the issue of the tax that should have come to the government will not be remitted. This, of course, also affects employment and so many other issues which you talked about in socio-economic impact. The opportunities exist when you use innovative approaches. So you talked about taxpayer engagement. You made a very good example with the case of digitization, where we can reduce the human interface. Because once there is human interface in issues of revenue collection, then definitely there will be likelihood of corruption and leakages. So if this can be reduced, talked about the cashless economy, so many other countries now, even booking of simple things like hotel rooms, they don't even collect cash from you. We talked about personalized communications and community outreach. So I think that has been a very wonderful intervention. We thank you so much for that. Thank you very much, sir. We would like to now call on the, I think it's an August visitor because we have in our midst the acting executive chairman of the Federal Capital Territory Inland Revenue Service, Mr. Michael Ango. Please round of applause for him. And we welcome you because your presence here is very, very important. Chief Executive has insisted that you give some intervention before the NFIU does, since they are the host. So we'd like to hear from you on this particular subject matter, opportunities and challenges in terms of revenue generation in Nigeria.
Thank you for being here.
Executive of the NFIU. I was with her yesterday and had a very warm reception in her office, and I'm happy to interact with the NFIU and with my brother and sister chief executives of the Internal Revenue Services. I always like to joke that I'm the youngest chief executive in terms of appointment. I was appointed in August. I think Undo was also appointed in August. We resumed before I did. So in that regard, I'm the youngest among the lot. But having said that, these issues that we discuss are very topical issues, especially for us as a country at this point in time. I remarked yesterday that this is the most difficult period in Nigeria to give anyone an assignment to go and collect taxes, because the economy is seriously challenged. Inflation is significant, and some of the key economic indices in the country are quite challenging. But when I walked into this hall, I did hear my former boss, Adev. For those who don't know, the reason why he was able to give you all a lecture is because he's a doctor. Not surprising that he was lecturing all of us here. The reality is that tax payment is a constitutional obligation. And I think most times when we approach our taxpayers, we only approach them from the level of, you need to comply with the Personal Income Tax Act, you need to comply with the revenue laws of the state. But we typically do not have recourse to the fact that the ground norm for taxation in Nigeria is actually the Constitution. That is where it starts from. Because the Constitution, like you said, has mandated us all to declare our incomes properly and pay the taxes due on those incomes. Now, why is it important that we start from the Constitution? Because every Nigerian will tell you that the obligation of government is to provide security, infrastructure, etc., etc. But we all know that there is no responsibility, that you will give someone that he will be able to discharge if you do not give him or her the resources to discharge that responsibility. So I think that's where we need to start from. And for me as a chief executive, and also someone who has been around the tax ecosystem for some time, I've always believed that the easiest way to convince people to pay taxes is to make the linkage between the fact that as a citizen, as an individual, you owe some obligations to your government. Of course, that's the demand side. The supply side of it is that your government in turn then needs to do what they are required to do by virtue of the fact that you are. Unfortunately for us as revenue administrators, we don't control the revenue that we collect. I hear a lot of people say, look, what do you do with my taxes? As CEO of the FCT Internal Revenue Service, I don't control the taxes I collect, but there are a lot of things we can do to foster compliance and to gain what I call tax legitimacy. If you collect taxes from people, the least that you can do is to do so in a very transparent manner, to do so in a manner according to law, and to ensure that you also give your taxpayers information that they require. I had Mr. Moazu say that in Kenya, they had a call center where the average time limit for responses is 3 minutes. In Nigeria, sometimes taxpayers will write to us and will not respond to them for months. And this is true. We're all guilty of it. Sometimes it's not deliberate, it's inadvertent. You are busy in the office, you have so many files you're treating. And so in order of priority, responding to taxpayer inquiries is low on your priority. But that is one place you can start from. Can any of us as chief executives say that we publish our tax collections regularly and that our taxpayers can see what we've collected? We're in the second week of October. All of us know what our results for September is. Has any of us published what we've collected for September? Now, of course, some might say, well, why do you want to expose your information or your data to taxpayers? No, sir, it is not your information or your data. It is actually taxpayer information. Now, this is different from information that adjacent to you, some persons who are not complying, or some persons billions of dollars in their accounts. That is confidential information, which I'm sure we all know how to handle. But in terms of normal taxpayer information, things like how many taxpayers have complied, what we've collected for the month, and all of that, that is easy. It's information that we can easily publish. And what that information does is to give taxpayers a sense of belonging. They feel, okay, fine, at the very least, I know what is happening. Now, the other side of it again is that even if you are not controlling the revenues, for example, in FCT, and I think I can use FCT as a very good example, even if you don't control the revenues, you can also publicize what the revenues are used for. I live in Life Camp, and in the last 1 month or so, I've seen street lights across the Warimpa roundabout. I've seen street lights on Mabushi Express. I've seen street lights, being put up along the way to my house. So that is very simple. I can easily take pictures of those and put them on a billboard and say, this is what your tax money is being used for. Those of us who know the WIE axis know that previously, if you are leaving zone 7 or zone 5 to go to WIE, you'd have to go to Bega and then go to, turn around and go to Utako. Today, within a minute, once you pass in front of the old road safety headquarters, you get on that bridge and you drive. I always like to tell the story that, there was a day I told my driver, let's go to WIE. And he went on the bridge. I said, are you mad? Where are you taking me to? Because the place was looking different. And within a minute or two, I was down. Those of you who know where Iya Oyo is. And I said, where were you? He said, yes. I said, wow. And I'm not saying this because I work under the minister, but the reality is that if we're able to demonstrate in our own little way that the revenue we collect has impact, then of course it helps us. Last but not least, I need to talk to my brother and sister CEOs. You see, the best example you can give anyone is your lifestyle. If a taxpayer walks into your office, he sees a Prado Jeep, he sees a G63, he sees an armored Brabus in front of your office, as chief executive of a revenue agency, he's going to get worried. What I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying don't have official vehicles. I'm not saying don't have good premises for your office. I believe we all need good working tools, but we have to be conscious. Even if you are privately wealthy, my advice is please keep your wealth at home. If you have a very good car, drive it on Saturday and Sunday. But when you come to the office, you must have some level of modesty so that when the taxpayers interact with you, they don't go away feeling that, using their tax revenues to live a good life. Even our social interaction sometimes, if you go for a party, even if you're a rich man, you come from a wealthy family, please don't go to a party and start spraying mints. Don't go to a party and then the man's name is singing your praises. From morning to night, he's singing Michael Ango, you are the champion. I mean, because everybody who is there is going to be thinking, what made this guy a champion is because he's chairman FCT, that's why he's the champion. But on a more serious note, we have very, very serious responsibilities as CEOs. And I must commend the NFIU in particular. I must commend what will I call it, my mother institution, which is the FIRS, because what those two agencies have been able to do in terms of, fostering integration and collaboration has been very fantastic. And I think that the NFIU in particular, will be critical to us achieving success in our individual jurisdictions. Now, at the end of the day, yes, you may get all this information, they may analyze it, they may give it to you, then you need political will. But you see, if you don't even have the data, then there's nowhere to go. And what I always tell people is that, look, you may get some data that you may not use today. But once you have that data, and let us be practical, you see, sometimes you get data because someone is a big man, quote unquote, he's in the good books of the political class in your state, so you can't use it. Just wait small. One day he will fight with your governor. The day he fights with your governor, rush to government and say, sir, this man that has been disturbing you, that wants to run against you, I have his information. I'm serious. You see, at the end of the day, look, you are only politicians will come and go, but the only thing that you can do is to collect revenue. So any opportunity that you see to collect revenue, collect it. When primary season comes and all the politicians are running to buy forms, go and meet your governor and say, sir, please, anybody who wants to run for House of Rep, House of Assembly, he needs to have TCC. from the party. And then if he needs to have TCC, you can't run for House of Reps and be bringing TCC of 200,000 naira. They will pay you at that time. Okay, yeah. Well, I've been told I have time. My time is up. But once again, thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to interact, with the agencies here, and especially, like I said, the NFIU is doing a fantastic job. Please let us leverage on the NFI, because at the end of the day, you see, there's some data that you have that you don't even want to be the source of the data. So if you have a problem handling some data, just when they ask you, where did you get to say, it's not me, it's NFIU that gave me. Thank you, Mr. Michael Ango, Acting Executive Chairman, FCT-IRS, for that excellent intervention. So we are very coming to the last presentation, but just before then, I want to just recap what he has mentioned. We talked about tax collection being very challenging at this particular point in time in Nigeria. We all know what everybody is going through. So maybe we need to reconsider what the Kenyans and the South Africans are doing, and possibly give some tax relief to the lower income earners in the society. You also mentioned that tax collection is a constitutional issue. It's an obligation of every citizen, because it is a social contract where you are to pay taxes and the government will provide the services and infrastructure for you. You talked about the need to convince people to pay taxes, but in doing that, you have to also show them what you are doing with the revenue you are generating. You did give very good examples of the infrastructure that has been put in place in some parts of the FCT, not because you are working under the minister of the FCT. So we appreciate that. And we also know that we also have to lead by example. You did mention that the CEOs and all the other officials here should at least try to lead by example in terms of their lifestyle, their approach to work, how they go about their activities, to show modesty even when they are engaged in social events. You also talked about collaboration and cooperation between all the relevant stakeholders, which is very, very important. And then finally, most importantly also, is the political will, because at the end of the day, if there's no political will, nothing much will change. So thank you again for your excellent intervention. And I would like to, at this point, call on my Chief Operating Officer, Law Enforcement Support Coordination, Madam Biola, for her own intervention for the NFIU.
Thank you very much. I want to really thank my CEO because this is a very important and novel approach she has brought. I mean, the vision is very clear. Handed the party to us, and thank you very much, ma'am. To what they asked me to do. So I'm asked to talk about innovation and talk about jurisdictions. We've heard about Kenya, we've heard about South Africa. So I want to quickly take what started. I don't know where they are right now. Maybe perhaps we will be able to think about that. There's the need, the type of tax administration process that they have in Brazil. Brazil has partnership process that sits on the blockchain. They have a unique tax identification for all their citizens, and they leverage the blockchain technology. I've heard technology was everybody's presentation, and keynote speaker also emphasized. So when we're talking about what is good in other jurisdictions, I see the Brazilian concept very effective because they are in the Latin American location, and they saw how the economic situation in the US affects their currency. So when we're talking about corruption, and we're talking about the impact of the value of the Naira, we also need to have in mind that there's need for us to protect the stability of our currency. So in doing that, an effective and efficient tax collection process is inevitable. We all have to key in. Our structure is also, when you look at our political structure, we're also structured the way Brazil is structured. They have federal state. So I'm happy and I'm very thankful that my boss is bringing to a round table for us to really sit under one roof and understand that we all have a common responsibility. And then we all align. And with technology, nobody can cheat anybody. My colleague from ICPC, Mike, said he was able to buy without paying digitally and bought cheaper. I've also had an experience where a taxi driver, I'm sorry to use the same people that he called. He said, look, I have the option to pay a little more lower if I will give him cash. But if my payment will be by card, I'll pay maybe another extra $4 or $5. I said, I need my receipt. So you see, we just have to decide. And that also takes me to the place of where we come in, because this is an all of society thing. We have to embrace technology and we have to be ready to work with technology. So let me quickly go to the second thing I would like to talk about. They talked about our role. Everybody has to talk about our role, but I would also say we sit where we are needed because we don't consume the quantity of information we have. So we are you, and we're saying we're here, please use us. And we've been very useful to FIRS, some state IRS that have come. So we're saying that please tax us and let us use technology to be able to serve you. Because of course we know that the demand and this advocacy we are putting on the table is going to be heavy on us. But with your cooperation and with the support of my leadership, I see us being able to get somewhere. Currently, we're told that we are at 15% revenue collection. Look at that graph for Africa. I mean, it's really a shame, to be honest. And we are all guilty, including me. You know, I know FCT is collecting my income tax, but do I have other incomes that I'm not paying tax on? I would say no. But again, we just all have to reform and also be able to plug in because we need our country back sincerely. So the role of FIU is to support you, is to provide you with all the needed information. What you cannot see, the FIU can see. I can tell you that for free. And we can provide that information seamlessly. And my director has already approved a digital platform that will help us to engage with you, because she was very determined on revenue. For that purpose, she created a department and a special skill set selected to serve this interest, to be able to work with you very closely. So we're ready to work like customer relationship type of effort from the banks. So we don't think that we are here on this other side. Please take this warm handshake from us. So our role is just to make sure that you get those data and you are able to use them. And also you are also able to be accountable, because we are also going to come and check, are you really remitting what you are getting? Because we said we are all in this together. All of us are guilty, and we're saying that let's call ourselves to order and have a better country. So I should discuss the framework of sharing data and insight on how we can improve compliance rate. For me, to improve compliance rate, it will be advocacy, engagement by all sides. Look at what it takes us to pull all of you out from your various locations. We thank you for coming, but we're saying that we're all on the table on this issue, and we all have to do our part. So you need to also create the same awareness. And I like the fact that the presentation of the essay pointed to the fact that local government, I took very good note of all his presentations, and he's telling us what is the role of the local government. And now that the monies are going to the local government, the opportunity for you to also go after the collectibles from the local level, all the business names that are not ready to pay tax, you need to work. You have the data. FIU can provide it, you can also work with your local community and start making your IGR to start shooting up. But we're saying that we're just a partner in the room with you, and we're ready to work with you to make sure that all is looking well in terms of your revenue assurance, because it's about you being able to collect those revenues and being able to declare and make sure that your IGR is looking good. The framework for sharing this information is that FIU has a very secured network. When my boss presenting her speech, she mentioned it's very secured. We have onboarded quite a number. And today I know that we have a site where our people take you on board. Our ICT are on ground. They are ready to get you into our system. And we have an upgraded AML CFT tool that my colleague will be talking. I don't want to get into Gia's presentation, but you can't wait to really listen to what is on board in terms of the kind of technology infrastructure that we have to be able to support this engagement. So I want to thank you, and we give room for question and answer. Thank you.
Yes, can we please give her another round of applause? So thank you, Ma, for that very wonderful intervention. She has basically presented to you what the NFIU can offer you. She talked about innovation, the use of technology. We've been discussing this all day. We cannot overemphasize the need for the utilization of technology. She gave an example of Brazil, which is a country that has some similarities to Nigeria in terms of population and the level of development. So with that, the Brazilians are able to come up with a very sound system, a robust system using a PPP arrangement that utilizes blockchain technology for, and these are best practices that can be replicated in Nigeria as well. So we need to embrace technology to make our task much easier and to make sure that we collect revenue in a more efficient manner. So of course, again, she has already pledged NFIU's commitment to support our stakeholders in this task, because it is a national duty and we are willing and able to do it. We have the right amount of resources, we have the right tools, and she has also hinted that for us to succeed, there has to be improvement in terms of compliance, and this effort has to be made by all the relevant stakeholders. She talked about advocacy, she talked about engaging the taxpayer, allowing them to know what their responsibilities are and what they stand to benefit from, making sure that the revenues that are generated are being put to the best use by the government. She says the NFIU has a very secured network. We have a CRIS platform. Of course, one of our CEOs who's in charge of that will make a presentation later on, giving you insights on how this can be utilized. So we have come to the end of the interventions. So the next step is the Q&A session. But I know we're running a bit behind time, so we'll try to make it snappy. So what I would suggest is, if you have your questions, I will, of course, select from those who are interested in asking, but try to keep the questions very precise and straight to the point, so that we save more time and a bit more effective. So the floor is open for questions.